Anthony Padilla did a really interesting conversation with someone who was two people who were involved in human trafficking. So the first thing that I'll say is that up until watching this video, I've heard human trafficking. It means it's not as gentle as the word sounds. It means like really aggressively, or even not aggressively, like coercing people into selling their bodies for sex or whatever, getting them wrapped up in drugs, like just
slavery.
A real, it's not with the chains. It's like with psychological chains often, and maybe though I imagine that some human trafficking might have chains in other parts of the world. What was fascinating, I'll give you the broad story, is that I think this woman was 19 at the time, rough relationship with the family, of course. This woman at work is really nice to her. And for her birthday, she takes her out to the club. They have a great time. She's getting a table. Yes. And by the way, I think it's this woman's birthday, or I forget. I don't know whose birthday. At the end of the night, the woman says, "You owe me $600." She says, "What do you be? I thought that this was your party, or I thought you were." No. And she get in the car. She's got an outfit for her. She's got a thing. She drives her to the strip club, and she says, "You got to go in there, and you better earn me $600." Starts to protest. Says, "I know where you live. I will kill your dad if you don't go do this."
Or this is ridiculous,
I
bro.
know. So insane, Henry, insane. She goes in. Immediately, there's a guy who's there. He's nice to her. Gives her 5 drinks. Loosens her up. She goes in and makes $600 doing dances. Comes out. Woman takes the money. And she said she felt good about it at that point. She was like, wow, I did it. You know, like, and again, the psychological destruction that I understand.
How far away you've gotten from just a night out.
I understand this in my own life, man. And if I wasn't human trafficked, I was abused. If I didn't live it and I didn't know what the mind is capable of doing, I would go, oh, you could have, you should have. I fucking get it. She was then taken to a hotel where she was given drugs. I don't know if she was drugged more than, but at this point, the difference is like there were 2 men in the room. She was given drugs, and she says she won't use the R word because she doesn't like using it, which, by the way, I fucking understand. And that was the first night, and they assaulted her, but you can use a worse word than that if you want to imagine it. And then that went on for a while, and the way that she started to get out of it was now she's working at the strip club. She's like that's her life now, and I don't know exactly the relationship. The cops have a training session where they go to the strip club owners, and they teach them about human trafficking, and they teach them what to look for. And the strip club owner says, I think I have a girl like that. They call her in, and they say, well, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Pause on that. Before this, she talks to a client, and she tells her how she got into it, and the client's like, oh my God, that's not right. So they have a plan where he's going to drive up to the curb, because she's not allowed to, like, they control your movement. She's not allowed to walk out with the client. She's not allowed to do this. They got eyes on
her all the time.
They have psychological control. You know what I mean? Like total, and the door's open though. People come in and out, but the psychological control is pitch perfect. Drives up with his car. She goes running out of the thing, hops into the car, speeds away, and he buys her a motel for 30 days. Like,
wow.
Yeah. So she gets out. She calls a guy that she used to know who was really nice to her. And she doesn't know anyone. She can't go to her family. She's too ashamed at this point. The things that she's done make her unable to go back. She calls a guy. He comes, and he then pimps her, which I thought was remarkable. And this is the thing that got me. The odds that you randomly call a stranger and that person is a pimp are, I don't know, but it's like, it's 1,000 to 1. It's 2,000 to 1. It's 10,000 to 1. I don't know what the exact number of pimps in the world is, but it is not most people. Maybe it's at worst case 200 to 1, right? There was something in her clearly that was, and this is no blame at all, that was a magnet and was moving towards that, and that experienced love as being used. And so this person that she could trust was the exact trust that she had learned to grow up with, which is that if you're using me, you're loving me, you know? And
did she say this, or this is your analysis?
No, this is now my analysis.
Because that is a crazy thing, that she found one person she contacted, and it was a pimp that then pimped her out.
And to me, that is not random. And again, this is based on, I was not in this situation at all, but I have been abused, and I understand what your detection radar system can look for in the world without you knowing it, when you think that you're escaping it, and what are
felt
alienated.
safest.
Yes, what feels right and safe is the situation that you are
just
used to.
escaped from.
Yes. So she gets this guy, and then he starts doing the same thing with her. And then finally the police, that's where that part that I had told you previously. And what's remarkable again is, which I relate to, she's sitting there and she's reading, she said, just read the pamphlet. She reads the first page, gets you in debt, does this, the other thing, controls your emotion. She goes, oh my God, this is the first woman that I met. And Anthony says, well, what about your current boyfriend? Did you put that together? And she says, no, I didn't put that together at all.
Did they put it together on the podcast?
No, she has prior? She has now. But she's like, at the moment that the cops were doing it, I could only relate it to the other situation which I had escaped. But I defended the current guy that I was with. I defended him. I loved him so much. That I just couldn't. And I was like, oh my God. And I think I share that one because it was a powerful story that I found was crazy. The other thing, there's a number of things. There were two people who shared their story. One was a 16-year-old guy, and the other was a 19-year-old her. The guy who did it to the 16-year-old is serving 30 years in jail because he was a minor and he had sex with a minor. The guy that did it to the 19-year-old is barred from going into strip clubs in Toronto because there's really no way to get this charge to stick. Because how do you prove psychological coercion? How do you prove...
This is her boyfriend.
The first people... They told her she had to. She didn't have to. They put her in a card. They made her feel uncomfortable. They gave her 5 drinks, which she was allowed. You know what I mean? What is the charge that you can get to stick? And I think this is what's difficult for people and the legal system clearly is to understand the power of psychological control that can be exhibited, especially, and this is over people that come from a broken background, which she... I don't know how broken, she didn't elaborate much, but a fractured relationship with her mother at the least, which made her drawn to this particular woman who was kind to her and then mean to her and then kind to her and then mean to her.
Is there a renaissance at some point where she heals?
Well, no, I mean, I think she's going through it now. She's, sharing her story. She's trying to prevent these sorts of things from happening. And, there was another thing that she said is that, or I don't know if she said it or if I wrote this down. There's a couple of things that I wanted to just say. One is it's just like, wow, we get the guy who does it to the 16-year-old, but the 19-year-old we just have no recourse for. As if, and I'm not, to be clear, I'm not saying the guy shouldn't have gone to jail for the 16-year-old. As if the level of cognitive growth is so tremendous from 16, 17, 18, 19 that one is a heinous crime and one is a nothing. Like, yeah, we don't have a good way to handle that. 2, you need to legalize sex work and regulate it, because when you don't, this is what happens with every industry. Like, you want to have alcohol legal? Well, we don't like alcohol. Well, then you get Al Capone. What? Pick your poison here. People are going to purchase sex. That will never, ever, ever stop. You need to legalize overage. And we could figure out what that age needs to be. But for adults, that needs to be a legalized, regulated industry, because you get worse when it's driven underground by
it's scary for when I hear that. It just seems scary to be like, we need to do this.
I feel the same thing with most drugs.
It's like, that seems like a giant decision
to legalize it.
Yes.
Look at alcohol, man. I mean, geez, how much we tolerate from alcohol, but we wouldn't consider legalizing sex work when there's other examples of places like Amsterdam that have done it, that you can, with levels of protection. Like, it's not like this is an experiment that hasn't been run.
Just like a world where it's you don't have to.
Well,
but yeah.
To be clear,
who is it me to tell people?
I don't mean legalizing what these people did to this girl.
I know.
I mean legalizing like the sex work aspect of it with check-ins and STD tests and psychological profile people who come in and like that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Because you can make it safer.
Yes.
And then there was another thing which is that the sense guilt being the lever that is pulled, the getting in debt, and that resonance. To be clear, this is my own addition. I know this feeling of owing somebody something. I've carried it my whole fucking life. And I think that is what made me susceptible as a young boy to this type of a thing.
Yeah.
Which is I owe you. I feel guilty very consistently. And that is the playbook is to activate guilt, because the type of person who
That
falls
works
for this
for it. Yep.
is the type of person who can't feel, that's not my shit. That's not my fault. You didn't tell me. You owe me an explanation. You owe me an apology. But for people that are hairline sensitive to guilt, somebody telling you that you owe them something, and any ambiguity there is they're right.
Yeah.
And the way that is ruthlessly exploited. And then the further thing of shame, which they then take and they get you to do all this stuff, and they even hurt you even more, and that makes you less likely to seek help.
Yeah.
That what they did the first night with her probably made her even less likely, that they made it worse for her, makes it harder to get out. I thought that all of that was telling and important to understand from a psychological perspective of how abuse occurs in the world.
Yeah, I really want to know like what occurred in the family setting.
You could ask her to come on.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I'm seeing if I wrote down anything else. And yeah, that it's the second largest criminal industry in the world, $150 billion of human trafficking.
Wow.
That's worldwide. But yeah, it's a lot. And again, these are estimates. It's not like you can go audit the books of this type of a thing.